Simucube just released their second steering wheel, the Simucube VALO GT-23. But are the improvements enough to compete with the strong competition these days? Let's find out. We're starting with the obvious. The wheel was provided by Simucube for the review. Thank you very much for that. But of course, all the opinions and thoughts are my own. The Simucube VALO GT-23 is priced between 966.64 euros and 1069.81 euros including taxes, depending on whether you opt for the Simucube link inclusion. You can save 5% on that using the code DAN5 in the Simucube store and also support the channel by doing that. When you take the wheel out of the box, it's the typical Simucube experience. I just love the finish mentality, which is a lot of no bullshit and straight to the point, and I feel like this wheel shows this very nicely. Even the name, VALO, means light in Finnish, and this is a reference to one of the new features, the first Simucube wireless wheel that supports RGB LEDs. I absolutely love this stealth-like design with the orange accents. It's very minimalistic but still very pretty. But let's talk about the basic specs. We do have a black anodized aluminum body with a 320mm Alcantara steering wheel. We have 10 buttons, 2 rotary encoders on the front here, 2 thumb encoders, 2 funky switches, and then on the back we have 2 shift pedals, 2 clutch pedals. The weight is insanely heavy, 2.1 kilogram including the QR, which is probably the heaviest wheel that I've ever reviewed. And it's also a wireless wheel with a giant 2 amp hours battery. But let's start with the front side. We have 10 buttons with an activation force of roughly 3.5 Newton. That's not super strong, but also not super weak, like in the midfield of the competition. They do have a slight rubbery feel to it with a nice tactile push sensation at the end. Nothing to complain about here. There are no lights, no RGB, no stickers, at least in this review unit. You can pretty much have any color you like as long as it's black. Then on top we do have 2 thumb rotaries with a rotational force of around 3.8 Newton centimeters. Also with a push button. There's some slight play on them, but that typically comes from the inclusion of the push functionality, so it's always a compromise. Do you want the push functionality or do you want the more solid feel? And we also have 2 normal rotaries with the same specs, also with the push functionality. They also feel very good. They feel harder to turn because the knob is smaller than the thumb rotary. And also in a very good position we have 2 funky switches and the big new feature for a Simucube wireless wheel, the RGB shift lights on top. This is a 3-12-3 configuration. It does not work with SimHub, but works with their own proprietary Simucube tuner software instead. I don't think it's a big deal because it has all the features that you need. It has RPM, red lights, flags, pit limiter and other stuff. But just for organization of all the wheels in one software, I still would have loved to see SimHub support. If we look at the back, we have one of the quietest shifters I've ever seen on any wheel. I mean, if I go close to the microphone here, it's really, really quiet. It's probably even quieter than the Fanatec APM, which are already very nice damped. They still feel nice and tactile with an activation force of around 9 Newton, which is relatively high for shifters. I guess that helps for the feeling. And the adjustability is very limited. You pretty much only have these elongated holes to adjust the shift pedal to the back and to the front. I'm always not a huge fan of these elongated holes because sometimes the pedal can get loose and you don't really know how much you can tighten them because it's tiny screws. But on this wheel so far I didn't have any issue with the pedal going loose. Also I like this texture of the shift pedal. It looks cool and it also feels very good. Clutches, pretty much the same thing. Pedal position adjustable with the elongated holes and that's it. The travel is in a medium range, I would say. Not as long as, for example, on the Usher wheel, but definitely more than good enough for standing start. Technology being used is a micro switch on the shifters and a contactless hall sensor for the clutch. Both the units are built very well and only have very minimal play. It's not completely play-free, but I've had much worse. I've had a few that are a little bit better. In terms of ergonomics, the default position works very well for my hands, and I think it's in a position that will probably work for everyone unless you have really, really tiny hands. But in general, the more adjustability you have, the better it is, of course. Then what we also have on the rear, typically, it comes with this giant spacer pre-installed. It's a 70mm pattern to mount, but wheel manufacturers, please stop designing your wheels in such a way that it requires a spacer to clear the shifters. That's just not a good design and it's annoying. And I will say it in every review of every wheel that has one of those forced spacers. Because every wheel that requires a spacer, you know, like ergonomics and body wheel distance is a thing because you want your wheels to always sit at the same distance to you. And if one wheel will now sit closer because it has this forced spacer, it's just annoying. Either you deal with it and you have weird ergonomics while using that wheel, or you add spacers to all your other wheels until somebody else maybe comes around with a design that requires an even larger spacer or a smaller spacer. I don't know. It's bad. Please don't do that. Also, the spacer is a little oddly shaped, as you can see. It's flat on the sides to clear the shifters. To be able to mount my NRG I couldn't mount it directly. I couldn't also mount it to this because it does have this proprietary Simucube quick release thingy. So what I had to do is, you can probably see it here on the side, I designed a little 13mm spacer. I had to buy longer screws for the wheel as well. And 13mm is enough to offset the QR so that it clears the shifters and the clutches. If you want that design, I can probably post it on my Discord. Just ping me there. But yeah, please don't do spacers. Rant over. Okay, what else do we have? On-off button for the wheel and a USB-C to charge it. I couldn't really find any information how long the battery will last while driving. The only thing that I could find on the Simucube website was that it lasts for days. So I guess it shouldn't be a big problem with the battery life, but yeah. Okay, let's talk about the wireless aspect next. This is a Simucube wireless wheel, but it's the first one that does not connect to the Simucube base directly. Instead, it connects to the Simucube link box, which is a little box with USB. It's also being used for the Simucube active pedals, for example, that just connects to any PC and you can use it with any base. If you don't have one, you can buy it together with a wheel for roughly 100 euros. And to be honest, I'm still not convinced how a proprietary wireless protocol that in the end still is Bluetooth will offer any benefits over standard Bluetooth, but at least you're not locked into using a Simucube base anymore. I mean, even though you probably should get a Simucube base, I still think this is the best base you can get in 2024. But still, Cube Controls uses Bluetooth for their wheels and it works just fine. But let's talk about that Simucube Link a little bit more. It's a new interface that talks to the hardware either via Ethernet or wirelessly. And I do like the Ethernet side of things because EMI and ground loops can be a big problem in sim rigs. These giant direct drive motors are just not doing good things with your electrical signals. And with the Simucube Link using Ethernet, you have a signal that is galvanically isolated. So there cannot be any ground loops and that can potentially help a lot. I definitely would love to see Simucube Link expand to the whole Simucube product palette with maybe like, I don't know, a Simucube 2 Plus or something. But let's see what the future will bring. Okay, ergonomics next. This is a pretty standard 320mm D-shape wheel. You probably have seen this kind of wheel in 2000 other wheels. It comes in an Alcantara option only, which is a little bit unfortunate. From my experience, Alcantara can wear quickly, especially if you do not use gloves. It can become very worn quickly. It doesn't have as much grip then and just doesn't look super pretty. I wish there was a regular leather option for this, but apart from that, the grips feel nice. I'd say it's a medium size, should probably work for everyone. And in theory, if you open up the wheel, just a few screws, you can swap out the wheel, but you need to make sure obviously that it fits this button box style, and you also will have to drill 2 holes in the spikes of the rim to fit the funky switches. When looking inside the wheel, everything looks very nice. Absolutely nothing to criticize here. Simucube certainly knows how to design electronics. Okay, I want to quickly show you the software that is now called Simucube Tuner. And you maybe know it from the active pedals. It's exactly the same software. It's the new Simucube stuff that uses Simucube Link. And basically to add the wheel, what you want to do is add device, select wireless wheel. I've already done that. As you can see here, wireless wheels. I have the VALO GT-23 connected. If we go to manage connected wheels, you can see this is connected right now, and for example, the Artura, which I already sent back, so we can't forget it, is also in this list. And what we have here is a very minimalistic UI. On the first page, we have the clutch bite point adjustment, just a very simple slider. Slave clutch is on the right side here right now, so that is very nice and easy to do. We also have the LED profile, a very basic configuration possibility. We can either choose a GT style, which will go from the left and right towards the center, or generic, goes from the left to the right, generic smooth, which does not have the groups, but is more like from a gradient from 0 to 100%, or F1 style, which, I don't know, is weird. I like to run the GT style. And these are all the effects that you have. It's RPM, ABS, traction control, spotter. It will just be one LED. It's not very good to see in your peripheral vision. I wish you could make this maybe a bit more obvious. But I don't think we need to know if whether it's 1 car or 2 cars for the spotter, but it is what it is. The flags, red flag, blue flag, yellow flag, and a pit limiter. And if you want to configure the LEDs here, you need to click on this icon, Simulator Connected. You can either do it in this generic menu that will work with any car, or you can also customize it to use car-specific configuration. But it's very basic. You can set the engine rev limits or the red light when the LEDs will start blinking. The UI here is not insanely well done because I was confused, like 0, 0, 0, what? But it's actually, yeah, just not very well done here, but I'm sure they can fix that. It's maybe because of the scaling of Windows or what do I know, but you can't really read what you're configuring here, but it's for the groups of the shift lights. But that's pretty much it. It's very simple, not tons of customization. It can do these effects. You cannot configure them. So if you want another color or if you want like 3 LEDs to blink, not possible as of today, but we are early for the tuner with Simucube Link and wireless wheels, so I hope there will be more customization options soon. And I think Simucube also mentioned that they are working on some sort of SimHub implementation, but I don't know how far that is or when that will release. After extensively testing the Simucube VALO GT-23 on various sim racing titles, it's time to give you my final verdict. On the track, the performance of the GT-23 is very good and the wheel feels at home in GT cars. The weight of the wheel, while it is on the heavier side, is not really a problem when paired with a stronger base. I personally like the national inertia a heavier wheel gives you. Of course, you can also add artificial inertia in the base, for example, if you use a very light steering wheel like the SimMagic GT Neo. But I don't know what it is. To me, the force feedback with a heavy wheel just feels a little bit better. The wireless functionality works flawless with no noticeable delays or disconnects, and coupled with a big battery in here, that should allow you to use the wheel for long racing sessions without having to recharge it. The integration with Simucube's own ecosystem through the Simucube Link offers a seamless experience, although it does lock you somehow into that ecosystem, which I personally think never is a good thing. Compared to its competitors, the VALO GT-23 stands out for its build quality and attention to detail in my opinion. The anodized aluminum body and this all black with orange accent aesthetics, I just think it's a very, very pretty wheel. And it's distinguishing it in a market full of wheels that are very similar looking and always feel like a rainbow just exploded. But I do have to say the inclusion of the RGB shift lights definitely helps on track. I think just seeing that and also a red light if you're revving too high helps. Ergonomic design of the wheel is excellent, fitting a wide range of hand sizes and driving styles. The D-shaped wheel is a common choice for GT racing, offering a comfortable grip over long distances. The ability to potentially swap the wheel for another, provided you're willing to modify it, is a nice option for those who are looking to customize the wheel even further. The thing I dislike, we talked enough about that, I'm not going to go into detail again. The spacer is just annoying and makes it unnecessarily difficult to attach other quick releases to this or even to match it to other wheels that have no spacer. And in terms of features, I think it also lags behind the competition like the Cube Control's GT Pro V2 for example, but I think it also compensates that with its design and build quality. So if you're looking for a D-shaped GT wheel and don't mind a relatively heavy wheel, I think the Simucube VALO GT-23 is a great option that you should definitely consider. But yeah, that's it for the review. If you liked it, maybe hit the thumbs up, maybe subscribe to the channel to not miss any future videos. Thank you very much for watching and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.